Hi folks, Mark here, Views from Mark. As always, I hope you're keeping safe, healthy and are well. Today's video is going to be very different to anything that I've posted before, but hopefully it's going to be an interesting one. So I want to start today's video and make it crystal clear that I am not endorsed by, sponsored by, paid by, or receive any kind of kickbacks from any of the brands that I'm going to be speaking about today, or any of the Bond brands in general. All my videos that I've posted, I make it crystal clear that the items that are featured in them are items that I've purchased myself. There's only one instance at the time of recording this video where I've ever been sent anything for free, and that was an Oliver Brown t-shirt. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to check out that video. But again, I make it crystal clear that I do not receive these items for free. I don't receive kickbacks or favors or anything like that. Everything is as you see it, and I will make it clear if that's ever the case otherwise. So at the end of February 2023, I, like many people, received another email from the 007 store. Now there's usually one or two a week that seem to come through, highlighting a new item, a collectible, a product, whatever it may be. And at the end of February, there was a particular item that seemed to catch a lot of attention, and that was the deal and partnership that's taking place between 007, Eon, and Leica cameras. And they announced a brand new collaboration piece. It was a Leica camera that had some 007 branding on. It was a limited edition run. Looked very nice. It wasn't one for me, I've said that publicly, but it seemed to raise the question, certainly within the online community, about is the Bond fandom just for the rich? They seem to be targeting high-end products all the time, luxury brands, and it kind of prices out the average fan. And it's a fair comment. It's a fair, assessment, seeing the kinds of emails that come through where it's generally higher-end products that are featured, whether that be a pinball machine, a Leica camera, or a solid gold lighter that can be in the tens and twenties of thousands of pounds, or dollars, depending where you are, of course. So it got me thinking from a curiosity standpoint, is that accurate? I mean, is that the case that 007 store is only really catering for the higher net worth individuals out there and collectors with, large amounts of disposable income? So I went on a bit of a rabbit hole journey and decided to do some analysis. Before we get to the results, I think it's probably important that I make it clear how I got the data and what I did to arrive at the conclusions that you're going to see as we go through this video. So if we start off at the 007 store website, hopefully you can see the screen here. There is a page on the 007 store that is just off the home page, and it features all products. So you can see it right up here. What that does is once you load this page, it will list every single item that the 007 store has in its inventory on one continuous page. You can then filter it by, as I have done here, price low to high. So once you've done that, it literally features every single, as I scroll through, it takes a while to scroll through, it features every single product, and there's a bit of a lag because there are so many as the page loads. But as you can see, there are loads and loads and loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of items, of course, finishing up with some very, very expensive ones. And you can see here on the screen, this is the Leica camera that I just alluded to, the James Bond Leica Deluxe 7 007 camera, numbered edition. It was available for pre-order, it's now sold out, but you can see that was on there, I believe, for about £1,750, so it wasn't cheap by any stretch. So anyway, on this one page, you have literally every single item that is listed on the 007 website, including those pinball machines that I also mentioned. So that's the first step. I get all the information on one page. It was then a case of copying all of these items, literally click, hold, drag back to the top of the page. It copies all the information, and I pasted that into a spreadsheet. Now at that point, I was hoping it would be a straightforward case that you'd just have a complete list of all the items and I could then start my analysis. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. When you paste all that information into a spreadsheet, it doesn't just give you the rows of items. You would have the item with the price underneath it, then a couple of spaces, then the next item, price underneath it, and so on and so forth. So what I had to do by hand manually is take the price, put it into the next column. Basically, it took me a long time to format to get the data into a situation that it was usable. But it wasn't just the data that was in the spreadsheet that I was using, because as well as the items that are listed on this page, there's also variations to take into consideration. For example, some of the prints, so the Ken Adam design prints, the limited edition pieces, as well as some of the Greg Williams photography pieces, they come in different sizes. So you'd have one item with potentially 3 different sizes and therefore 3 different prices. So to make this as fair as possible and to try and capture every single item possible, what I did was I took that single item and I doubled it or tripled it in some cases and listed basically every size variation for that same item. So if a photograph was on there for sale at, say, £300 as the small size, medium size was 450 and the large was 600, then I would have 3 items and 3 different prices. So we capture everything in one place. Once I had all that information in one place, it took me about 6 or 7 hours to sort it all out and get it into the correct format to make sure that I could then do some data analysis on it. So once everything's been formatted, we then have this format, which you can see here. There is loads of items. This is the lower end of the scale, obviously, with postcards that are quite low priced. So once all the data was in a usable condition within this spreadsheet, I could then do some analysis and look at how many items there are in totality on the website compared to how many I thought there would be, and then also what kind of price brackets those items fit into. So is the majority of items in the higher end of people's budgets or the lower end, etc. So the results actually surprised me quite a bit. So what I decided to do was put a couple of polls out to my followers to see what people's perceptions are around the 007 store. So the first one that I put out was, to my followers, I asked how many items for sale, including size variations, so as I say, the different size of prints, do you think are on the 007 store? So the options that I gave, because you can only give 4 for people to vote on, were 250 to 500 items, 500 to 750 items, 750 to 1,000 items, or 1,000 items or more. Now I, going into this exercise, thought there would maybe be about 350 to 400 items based on what I had seen on the 007 store website before taking all the information off. You browse through the different categories and it's, you know, the pages sometimes aren't that extensive and sometimes you see the same things on different categories that they have within the site. So I was expecting 350 to 400. So the results from the poll that I put out, the perception with people was that 55% of people believed there were 250 to 500 items on the store. So that fits in pretty much with what I thought going into this. 27% of people thought there were between 500 and 750 items on the 007 store. 8% thought there were 750 to 1,000, and 10% of everyone who voted thought there were 1,000 plus. I can tell you that there are actually 857 individual items on the 007 store. So that's more than double what I was expecting, and that blew my mind. I couldn't quite believe it. And certainly when you see it in a complete list and you're scrolling through, it suddenly makes sense. So that was the first part of the feedback that I requested from people. The second part was a bit more involved. I wanted to know at what price point does an item that is on the store, or generally within the Bond fandom, at what price point do things become a luxury item? Now I made this very varied. I let people put whatever price that came into their head. There was no poll. I just let people answer with the direct response of saying anything above this I would consider to be a luxury item. Now don't get me wrong, this is a very broad question because everyone's circumstance is different, and of course it depends on what the item is that you're getting. If you're paying £100 for a pen, you can argue, yes, that's very expensive for a pen. If you're, however, paying £100 for a pair of shoes, that's not so bad. So It is varied, but I wanted to take a broad look at the fandom in general and to see what people would be willing to spend on a single item before it becomes a luxury item for them. The results were a surprise to me because of all the votes and the feedback that I had come through from people, half of them pretty much said anything above £250 is a luxury item. The same amount of people replied saying anything above £500 is a luxury item. A few people replied that anything above £1,000 is a luxury item, and one person said anything above £4,000 they considered to be a luxury item. Now, whether that was a serious comment or not, I'm not sure, but I've included it anyway for full transparency. But I found it really interesting that nobody went for anything that was around £50 up being a luxury item. It was all generally 250 plus is a luxury item. With that knowledge, I then asked people a third and final question, German 3. Of all the items on the 007 store, what price bracket do you think the majority of these items fit into? So of all the 857 items, what price brackets do they fit into? And I gave a few options. Under £250, between £250 and £500, between £500 and £1,000, or over £1,000. So the results of this were also obviously quite interesting because 50% of people that replied thought the majority of the 857 items were under £250. 43% of people believed it was in the next tier of between £250 and £500. 2% of people thought it was between £500 and £1,000, and 4% believed it was over £1,000. So it is a mixed bag, but generally of 857 items, and bear in mind that these people didn't know the number of items that were on the store because I was taking feedback in stages, it was interesting to see that that is the perception. So when I looked at the actual results, I'm not saying this like it's an opinion, this is a fact. These are the numbers, and this is looking at everything, the cost, and then seeing how many items fit into each of the cost brackets. And you're going to be surprised at this because this really shocked me, and I couldn't believe it was this result. Items between £0 and £250. Of the 857 items, 647 of them, so that's 75% of the items on the 007 store are under £250. I mean, 75%, 3/4 of everything on the store is under £250. So that's quite a revelation, or it was to me. I then looked at the next tier, £250 to £500. Again, of the 857 items, 105 or 12% is between £250 and £500. So in total, when you look at everything that's under £500 on the 007 store, of 857 items in total, 752 of them are under £500, which equates to 88%. So 88% of the entire catalogue is under £500. Moving on to the 500 to 1,000, 76 items are between 500 and 1,000, that equates to 9%. 20 items are between £1,000 and £5,000, which equates to 2%. And there's 9 items that are priced at 5,000 plus, which is 1% of the total inventory. That's great to know that there's so much there that is under £250, but I went a level deeper and I looked at a lot finer detail of everything that was between, say, £0. There's nothing for £0. The cheapest item on the store seems to be 70 pence, and that's a postcard. So everything that is between the 70 pence and £25, of the 857 items in total, 328 are under £25. That equates to 38% of the total stock of the website is under £25. If I look at the £25 to £100, another 258 items are priced between £25 and £100. That's 30%. So this is the big headline number. Everything that is under £100 that, you know, you can argue is within the reach of most people. Again, everyone's circumstance is different and it depends on the item that you're getting or that you're after as to whether it's good value or not. However, Purely from a numbers point of view, there are 586 items that are under £100 on the 007 store website. That equates to 68% of the total stock. So well over half is under £100. Now, I'll pop up on the screen the detailed breakdown that I have here of the cost brackets that I've had, the number of items that relate to those cost brackets, and what that translates to as a percentage of the total website. So you can see this for yourself. I was shocked, as I say, because I thought there would be, first off, about 350 to 400 items on the store. I was well off. There's more than double that, 857. I thought the majority of items on the store would be at least £200 plus. That's not the case, clearly. The majority of the items are actually at the lower end of the scale. I mean, 38% under £25 is incredible. Another 30% under £100, so 68% under £100. Yeah. I knew going into this that there would be an inconvenient truth around it, and I thought, I'm going to look at this and it's going to be, yeah, actually, everything is weighted more towards the serious collectors who have the disposable income to just go and buy everything under the sun, no matter the price. The numbers aren't showing that. So the inconvenient truth with this is that really, in terms of fandoms and items that are available, we're really well catered for in every price bracket you can think of. Yes, there are luxury items, but I think the issue here is the perception versus reality. And what I mean by that is, as I started this video, it was an email that came through about a brand new partnership that Eon and 007 Store had with Leica to do the new James Bond camera. And that was priced, I think it was $1,750. It was a limited edition piece, but it was another example of an item coming through that's of the high-end luxury brand nature. So that's what gets people thinking, well, it's only catering for the rich. And I've thought that myself often. But I think the issue here is perception versus reality. The inconvenient truth is that actually it's not aimed at the rich. You could argue actually it's aimed at everyone because so much is valued at under £100 or even under £25. That's the reality of it. And I think the problem is within the 007 Store website as well, something I've certainly noticed as you're browsing through, you're only really seeing the higher end items. Now, whether that's how the website is designed, because obviously they want to sell those items as well, but I think if you dig below the surface, you can find some amazing deals, some amazing collectibles. I've seen things as I've been putting this information together and researching this video that I didn't know existed. Some great printed editions of poster sets, limited edition poster sets, cards, coins, all sorts of things that I didn't know existed because I hadn't seen it on the store before. I hadn't seen an email come through about it, but they are there. We just have to look for them. So this isn't a video that is meant to antagonize anyone. I'm not trying to dismiss anyone's opinion. I'm literally just giving you the facts as they are. These are the numbers and the numbers don't lie. So there we have it. I mean, it's an in-depth look. I've tried to get the points across the best that I can here, but I wanted to come into this with a completely open mind. And as I say, a lot of my preconceived ideas about how many items there were and the price brackets have been completely blown out the water. I mean, when you actually look at the numbers, it's something I can't argue with. I didn't think it was going to be this result. It is. I'm very pleased that it is because it shows actually we have a store with some amazing collectible items that are pretty affordable for the majority of people. Again, everyone's circumstance is different, but I think the important thing to remember here is that the brand deals that we see coming through on an email where you'll have a camera, for example, I'll use Leica as the example, you have a camera that is announced and people say, well, this is a camera that appeared on the screen for less than half a second. It wasn't even used by Bond, but apparently they're an official sponsor. I won't go into the whole details of how those brand associations work, but basically people like Amiga, people like Leica, people like Heineken, you know, all these corporate brands that have sponsored the movies, they pay money into the franchise so that they can have their products featured. Whether Bond uses it or not is not a case for the brand to dictate. I've heard stories from some brands where they've had items in a movie that have been featured in a movie, but that scene has ultimately been cut out and not included in the final movie. So with Leica, that may well be something that happened in No Time to Die, that it was used in the film, but that scene never made it to the final film. We just don't know. But it's one of those things. They go hand in hand. Filmmaking costs money, so they do associations with brands. Brands then want to be able to sell a limited edition piece that's associated with the movie. That's just how it works. And it means that they then have money to put towards the development of future films, Bond 26, whatever it may be. So I can fully get why people find the brand associations a bit annoying sometimes, perhaps, and that it's only ever higher end brands, but it's the higher end brands that have the money to be able to put into the movies and then also get that kind of payback in a sense of being able to release a limited edition piece. That's just my thoughts. I realise this might have been a bit of a scattergun video, but I wanted to try and present these results the best way I could. I'm going to leave the end screen as the table with all the price brackets, the number of items and the percentage that translates to. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, hit the subscribe button and also the bell notification button so that you get a notice whenever I post something new. I hope you've enjoyed it. There is an inconvenient truth in this somewhere, and I think it's that actually the argument doesn't necessarily stack up, that it is a fandom that is only catered for the rich, based on these numbers anyway. But look, until the next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay well, and I'll talk to you all very soon. Thanks very much.